was founded in 2007. And the idea was, and the reason the name Mule, was that our founder is a British guy, and they call integration donkey work. And I guess he decided that AskSoft wouldn't be the right name. So we ended up with Mule, and it's something that we love, and it's been the name of the open source project ever since. And that's what the company was founded on, was this original Mule project. And what's happened over the years is we've built it into this very broad platform that companies use now to connect everything on the back end. So you connect your mainframe, your old mainframe systems and your old databases and SAP and Oracle and everything else, and then you use that to connect to Twitter and Facebook and Salesforce and mobile applications, Internet of Things. We basically provide this single platform for connectivity. And what's happening now is you've got companies who are kind of moving toward, it used to be service-oriented architectures was something that kind of came in to style, and then it went back out of style again. And now with APIs and microservices, really the whole concept of having decoupled enterprises is coming completely back into fashion again. And we're kind of sitting right in the center of all of that growth. And what it's meant was, I started with the company in 2009. At the time, we had 20 people, and now we're almost at 600 people. We've grown 100%, almost 100% the last 3 years, and this year we're going to grow 100% again. So 4 years in a row of growth between kind of 80 and 100%, and it's global. So we have San Francisco as our headquarters office. We have offices in Atlanta, New York. A very large office in London, a large office in Sydney, Australia, Singapore, Amsterdam. So a very global company at this point, and we serve really pretty much a who's who of companies. So a lot of big banks that you've heard of, a lot of big insurance companies, automobile companies, high-tech companies, consumer packaged goods companies, pretty much any organization that has a really large IT infrastructure, we can provide the platform for them to run that infrastructure on. So that's kind of a little bit of the history of the company from a kind of product standpoint and market standpoint. Then the next part that's is interesting is kind of how we ended up in Buenos Aires. There's a good little story around that. So when we were 20 people, we had 6 developers. And none of them were in San Francisco. We had a developer in Germany, one in Germany, one in New York, and then 2 others in different states in the United States. And then we had 2 developers in La Plata. And those 2 developers, neither one of them were Argentinians. One was a Brit and one was an American. They were both married to Argentinians, but they lived in La Plata. They lived 10 blocks away from each other, and when they joined MuleSoft, they didn't know each other, so it was completely random. And so we were in San Francisco, and it was 2009, and in 2009 in San Francisco, the whole economy in the world was crashing. We were actually struggling with insurance companies and banks were kind of our key customers. It was hard. Nobody wanted to go work and do what's now really the hottest space. At the time, the hottest thing was Zynga and Facebook, and everything was about social networking, and we had a really hard time hiring. So we were struggling to hire. We're this company with a barnyard animal as a mascot, and we were selling enterprise software, which at the time was not hot. Now it's red hot, but at the time, it was not the hot thing to do. And so we were struggling to hire, so we said, why don't we hire a couple people around these 2 developers in La Plata? And so we actually found 3 more people in La Plata. We were just going to kind of build a small little sustaining engineering team around these 2 developers. Like, it was the only place in the world that we had 2 developers together was La Plata. Everything else was just one here and one there. And we kind of fell in love with Argentina. We hired 3 great people. Started to really get to know the 2 that were down there were American, one Brit, but the 3 new ones were Argentinians. And we kind of started falling in love with the culture and just working with the team. We felt like we could actually hire really high caliber talent. And then I came down here to interview for a manager, because we didn't have any managers here, we had engineers. And I started interviewing managers in La Plata for building up our center in La Plata, and they kind of started saying, "Why are you going to La Plata? You should be in Buenos Aires," which at the time, we didn't have a good sense, good understanding of the geographies and everything. We thought it was a little closer than it was. So then that was, where's Ramiro? Is he here? That was, I guess that was 2000, and that would have been 2010 when we hired our first manager, Ramiro, and we moved everybody. We had 5 people, and we moved from La Plata to Buenos Aires. And ever since then, we've just been growing extremely fast. And what it's meant for us is, we think of Argentina as being extremely strategic for us because, for me, having development in a time zone that's far away for a company that's moving as fast as we are is really hard. When you're trying to deal with time zones of 10 hours away, it just doesn't work. You can't cycle as fast as you can. You can't do. We have tremendous amount of video conferencing gear. Almost every office conference room has video conferencing gear, so we're constantly iterating between San Francisco and Buenos Aires, and having that close connection really helps. So that for us, the time zone is huge, and then we have so many of our customers are also in Europe, and so Argentina is a perfect place to kind of split between Europe and North America. And then I would just also say we've just found that the talent in Argentina has been fantastic, and the kind of the close cultural ties. I think we just find that interaction-wise with Argentina, even though sometimes there's some language barriers, for the most part we feel like we're very close, kind of culturally. Obviously different cultures, but still close enough to where we relate to each other really well. So we're, we think of ourselves as, I think we're probably one of the most interesting places to come to work in Argentina, because it's kind of the best of all worlds from the standpoint of you get to work for a company that is building really some of the most complex, difficult products on the planet, right? So we're building out on top of it on Amazon. We're one of the biggest consumers of Amazon's service. We're one of their major customers because we're deploying so many workloads on top of Amazon. Very, very high volume, very, very complex. And if you're a developer, you're building products and tools, by developers for developers. So instead of building, if you go to first, you're getting to work for a product company where the product is everything that matters. And then second is you're building something that you can actually relate to instead of shipping something for a marketing department or for a sales department or for a bank or something like that. You're actually building products for somebody just like you to use, so you really kind of can understand exactly what they're about. So for that standpoint, we think it's great. And then, we've made such a significant commitment here that we're very, very, our intellectual property, a big chunk of it is here in Argentina, and we're here to stay. So when we start thinking about, differences in pricing and costing and things like that, that's not something that for us is a consideration set. Like we want to, we have most of our engineers here. So from a stability standpoint, it's not exposed to the economic shifts that can happen in Argentina. So it's exposed to the world economics, but not specifically to Argentina. So it's kind of a bit immune from the Argentinian economy, but also, full commitment to be in Argentina. Next thing that I think I'll cover a little bit is culture. We spend a tremendous amount of our energy first in hiring. So hiring is, and I'll tell everybody who will listen to me, and they get really tired of me saying this, but hiring is our #1 job at the company. Who we bring in really defines us as a company. So we have this very high hiring bar. We have very stringent interview process. We do extremely long set of reference interviews with people. And for us, we just want to make sure that no matter who we bring in, everybody feels like when they look around, they think, wow, that person is actually, increasing, the overall capacity and the overall abilities of our firm. And what I hear over and over again, we have our bugs, we have our little, things that go wrong and things we need to fix. But I hear time and time again that the reason I love coming to work here is it's the smartest group of people I've ever worked with. It's the nicest group of people I've ever worked with. We don't have politics. It's just a good, really good, solid group of people. And it's at the end of the day, you're spending most of your waking hours at work. So if you're going to be at work during most of your waking hours, I feel like you really ought to be having a lot of fun. And to me, having fun, a big chunk of that is just looking left and looking right and knowing that those are the kind of people that you want to hang out with, and you want to go out to lunch with. And so I think we've done a really good job of that, and that's something that I really focus on. I had this professor, and I went to business school. I had this professor named Jim Collins. He wrote a bunch of business books that are pretty famous, called Good to Great and Built to Last. And his whole philosophy was it's just all about who you get on the bus. So if you get the right people on the bus, the company is going to do fantastically well. And we've just been really good at focusing on that. So that's kind of how we start, how we think about the culture from the beginning and how we start to build it. And then once people are in the company, we really focus on having a really flat organization. So, for example, we don't have any offices, so nobody in the company has an office. We think about, all of us we have hierarchy, because if you didn't have hierarchy, you kind of have anarchy. So you do have some decision-making hierarchy, you just kind of have to. But we don't think about that hierarchy in terms of, I'm at a different level or I'm senior to you. We think about it just from a decision-making standpoint. But we look around and we think about everybody on the team as being peers. And so we want to have this really flat organization. We want to have a place where people, they're looking around, they're saying, well, that's broken and I'm going to go fix it. And it has nothing to do with what my job is, because that's a big deal and I got to go make that happen. And so we want people to just be really comfortable just like doing things and getting outside of their responsibility, and not waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. We want to have this just really open culture where people just go. So that's really, for here in Argentina, it's been fantastic because most of our innovation in the company has come out of, an engineer on a mission to go change the world. And we see that that's really what makes the difference. I mean, it's great to have a product manager specify a new product, and that's wonderful, but there's nothing more special, and that's what the technology companies were built on, right? All these technology companies that have kind of, software eating the world, that have kind of taken over from a technology standpoint, they're done with, a person on a mission. And what I love about it from a developer standpoint is, if you think about in the history of mankind, when has one person ever been able to sit with no materials, like no money, no iron, no wood, no explosives, nothing else, and just sit there on a keyboard and create value that can be used globally? I mean, that is just an unbelievable thing. I mean, if you go back 50 years ago, it couldn't have been done. If you go back, 100 years ago, you had to work with your hands. If you go back 1,000 years ago, like, you couldn't get any leverage. Now, one developer and a keyboard can create, billions of dollars of value for consumers, for businesses. And so we look at that, we just think, like, just empower our technologists to go do amazing stuff. And so that's the kind of culture that we try to build. I think we've been, pretty successful at it so far. Certainly that we do a lot of kind of engagement surveys. One engagement survey, so we run an engagement survey now for 2 years. And I think it's probably the stat that I'm most proud of. So revenue and all that other, company valuation and all those other things aside, what I'm most proud of is when we did our last survey, we asked 13 questions. And the last question was, would you recommend MuleSoft to a friend as a great place to work? And for every one person that said they disagreed with that, or I would recommend MuleSoft to a friend as a great place to work. And for every one person that disagreed with that statement, 10 people said they would recommend it to a friend as a great place to work. And we'd love for that to be 100 to 1, but I think, there's very few companies out there where 10 to 1 would say, I'd bring a good friend in here to work because I think it's a great place. So that's what we've been trying to build. We've got an amazing team in the company, and I think in particular in Buenos Aires, I love coming down here because I just get to work with this team. So I think we built that, and yeah, that's it. So any questions I can answer for you guys? Oh, what's that?
After the drinks, they will ask more questions.
After drinks? Okay. Well, I'll be around, so have a drink and we'll talk. Just grab it. All right, thank you.